Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Look Forward. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Brad.
Jay, you have a clip for us, and I hope it'll brighten my spirits because I'm despondent today, and I'll tell you why after you play the clip.
Brad, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Here you go.
Kelsey is a really good football player, and apparently Miss Swift makes him a better one.
If you're Donald Trump or part of the far right and you're having trouble with women voters, is there a worse strategy than attacking Taylor Swift?
You know, I don't think there's anything strategic about this. I think most of these people are sexually inadequate, and they go for all this crazy stuff. And I don't think, and there's nothing strategic about something that stupid. It's just real stupidity to believe something like that. And she seems to me, I'm not very familiar with her generation. She seems like a really nice person, kind of well raised, and you know, gives the people at work for like $100,000 bonuses. What's there not to like about Miss Swift? I have no idea. I don't get the memo.
Do you think it'll blow up in their face?
If all this stuff hadn't blown up yet, I don't know if their face is blown upable, but it's massively entertaining to watch people this stupid go public. I can't, honestly, I can't get enough of it.
There he is. There's your James Carville clip for the week. That time he was on, what was he on, CNN, looks like?
Even Donald Trump's not stupid enough to talk shit on Tay Swift, not yet at least.
No, that's a mistake. He has apparently privately said that he's more popular than Taylor Swift. I'm like,
okay,
look, settle down. All right, just settle down. Like there, and you could say, well, he's gotten all these millions of people to vote for you. Yeah, that's out of two people, dude. Like, people choose her music. Like, there are billions of songs you can listen to. They choose her music. Like, you're not more popular than her. Like, you're just simply not.
So I will tell you why I'm despondent. So
I know that clip helped.
A little bit, but it's still like I'm worried, Jay. I'm concerned. Not like Susan Collins concerned, but I'm legitimately worried here. Quiet as it was kept, the Democratic South Carolina primary happened just a couple of days ago.
It's true.
And look, our boy, Unky Joe Bizzle, the incumbent President Joe Biden is in trouble. Jay, he is in major trouble. Of course, South Carolina launched his run to the White House 4 years ago. This year, it tells a different tale. We are in dire straits, my man, because Joe Biden could only pull down 95% of the vote in the South Carolina primary.
It's weird because I thought that the tradition, as it stands now, is as an incumbent, you would only get about 51% of the vote. So this is really outside of the realm of like what we've been seeing. Yeah, it was so funny. I didn't even realize the day of the South Carolina primary. I was just like, why would I be checked into that? Like, who cares, right? Like, we all knew how this was going to go. I didn't think Marianne Williamson was going to do like any significant numbers. I think she got like 250 votes, which is crazy. Like, that's just
she got more than Dean Phillips got. So maybe Dean Phillips should shut his bitch ass up and go back to the House. Do your work. You got beat by Marianne. That's we're gonna use that metric as the like the political version of the Mendoza line. Like if you can't get ahead of Marianne Williamson, like you're done. Yeah, it's time to go.
Like, knock it off. Same thing goes for, I don't know if he dropped out. I don't know why I would even care, but same thing goes for Cenk Uygur. Relax, okay? Like, come on. So
I doubt he was even on the ballot.
Yeah, that's true. And they're definitely not going to write him in. So, yeah, it is hilarious to see, like, I was completely checked out of that race for obvious reasons. I don't think anyone outside of South Carolina was, and people who work in the news, particularly checked into that race for a reason. And yeah, and I was on my phone. It's like, Joe Biden wins South Carolina primary with 95% of the vote, and I was like, yeah, that's about right. Like, and now I'm gonna go big dinner. Like, yeah, it's not a controversy. And again, this idea of like, are people backing Joe Biden? Yeah, they are. He's the incumbent. Like, I don't know why we do this weird dance where we pretend like there's certain like truisms in politics, and I don't mean it on the wackadoo side where like anything can mean anything, but like the actual like normal side of politics, like, yeah, it's normal for the incumbent to get 95+% when they're running again, like especially presidential incumbency. So it's weird that we're even having that conversation, but yes, I think we're okay. Like, people are still backing him. Like, I don't know, like,
One more anecdote that I heard. So we talked last week about the Biden getting the endorsement from the United Auto Workers Union, and so apparently, like the Vegas Culinary Union was in negotiations with management out there, and they were preparing to strike. And then Joe Biden decided he was going to take a trip to Nevada to coincide with when the strike would start. And I'm not saying that this is how the deal got done. But very shortly after this news was announced, the deal got struck between the union and management.
Look, you're not willing to say it. I'm willing to say it. That's 100% what happened. Like, all right, guys, like, let's knock this shit off. I mean, look, one, he's a super pro-labor president. Like, he just is, right? Is he as pro-labor as like a Sheldon Whitehouse or something like that? No, obviously not, right? Because I'm sure that'll be the immediate comparison. Like, relax, I get it. Like his dad wasn't an actual factory. Like, okay, but at the same time, like, his ability to connect with unions has been something like, obviously, like, Obama was able to connect with unions on a like, hey, I'm a Democrat and my policies benefit you. But Joe Biden, he's got that like Scranton, Pennsylvania fucking, I'm there for the Dunder Mifflin guys who work down in the factory part of the business kind of vibe to him. And I think it works, right? Like, Obama comes much more from the sort of like side of the Democratic Party that's obviously the people of color side of it, right? Like that is clear and obvious. And Joe Biden comes from the white working class side of it, right? And like, that's part of the reason why they also won, right? Like, hello, they played exactly the two biggest demographics of that party when they ran in 2008. So it's not a surprise that Biden is able to walk into these sort of blue collar areas and union areas and just be like, hey, your boy's here. And it's like, they connect to that guy. They just do. Like, he's got that sort of reputation and everything else. So yeah, I'm not surprised that got cleared up with him being, I would guess, very much involved in the like, look, let's all come together. We don't need, like, things are going much better than they were a number of years ago. We don't need a massive strike to just throw the country into your state into another fucking spiral. We don't need that shit. Management, get it together. You're probably reaping massive profits. You can come down 2% to make sure people are, able to eat who work for you, right? And they're like, fine, I guess 2%, right? Like, I'm sure that's kind of how it goes. So yeah, I'm sure he has something to do with it. Okay, first up, District Judge Tanya Chutkin vacates the March 4th date for Trump's Jan 6 trial with no reschedule. So the problem here is, well, one, this probably moves this into past election season, which is not good, right? Unless she comes up
really past election season, but
we'll see. I mean, what I would say is there's a chance that it could still be going on during it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which is a real problem. The other side of this that's kind of interesting is it does make space for the Stormy Daniels trial to go first, interestingly enough, or to go before this. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm obviously not a fan. Like, the only reason this happened, and we'll talk about this in our next story, is because the DC Appeals Court took their sweet ass time handing down their ruling on Trump's presidential immunity claim in this case. And now it has to go to the Supreme Court, so that's going to take even more time, which is why we had to push the March 4th date past. The other reason I'm not a huge fan is because the New York case is arguably like the weakest case of all of them and the least consequential. And so, like, if you win, I don't think it moves the needle all that much. But if you lose, like, it still gives Trump something he can point to be like, see, they're trying to frame me, they're trying to get me, like they're attacking me. So, like, I didn't want this New York case to be the first one to go. I was quite happy that the DC case was going to be the first one, but now that does not seem like it's going to be the case. Again, still good. If you don't want Trump to be reelected, for him to be in a courtroom as much as possible during this time of year. But
that's true. That's very true. Look, it's I guess the bigger story here is actually the next story, which goes hand in hand with that, which is what is this? The DC appeals panel says that Trump is not immune from prosecution, which is kind of a big deal, a little bit. We'll see. Obviously, the chance of this going to the Supreme Court is 125%.
Yes. Yeah.
But as it stands right now, they are saying, like, listen, there is no de facto sort of immunization for the former president. Quote, the ruling is significant not only for its stark repudiation of Trump's novel immunity claims, but it also breathes life back into a landmark prosecution that has been effectively frozen for weeks as the court considered the appeal. Look, I mean, I think we all knew that this is where this was going, right?
It is.
It was always to the SCOTUS, always.
And it's funny because dipshit, upon hearing this ruling, went on his Truth Social site and he shouted in all caps how this is ridiculous, and if a president can be held accountable for things he did while he was in office, then all you're going to see is presidents leaving office and then being criminally charged by their successors. To which people pointed out correctly, bro, like, we've gone 230 years and that's literally never happened until you came along. Like, it's not a problem with the system. It's you.
Yeah. He's like, no, the system just became corrupt. Like,
yeah,
just now. Yeah. I mean, the idea of that is so silly, right? Because one, you have two parties, right? This is not a king situation or something like I was king and then I'm not king, but everybody still has like this, like, even though I'm the ex-king, which is not really a thing, like, people have like this general love for me, so it's fine. That's why no one's ever been prosecuted, and you're trying to change this law. No, you've had Republican presidents, and you've had Democrats who have the power to prosecute you all over the country and federally, and they've never done it, and they've hated your guts. If George W. Bush wasn't prosecuted after leaving office for what I would argue are war crimes in the Middle East, then nobody's getting prosecuted for some fucking bullshit shenanigans. You're getting prosecuted for things that you did that were, in fact, egregious, not just from the perspective of policy differences, right? Like, it's hard to make an argument, and I know this is going to run very counter to what I think a lot of liberals believe, but it's really difficult to make an argument like about George W. Bush and like the war crimes argument and stuff like that. It's difficult to make that from a legal perspective inside the United States because it's a policy issue, right? It ultimately is a policy. You can disagree with it. I fundamentally disagree with it. But in order to nail someone on like war crimes, that has to be handled at like The Hague, right? It can't be handled internally in the country because there's 50% of the people who go, yeah, dude, that's the policy. We went by what are the rules and order of engagement and things like that. Whether or not people got killed and stuff like that, you can brush it off as policy. Again, that's
I'll give you.
That's not my moral dude, but I'm just saying from a technical perspective.
I'll give you the more bulletproof example. If what Trump says is true, then why did Gerald Ford pardon Richard Nixon? Like if Nixon couldn't be prosecuted for stuff that he did as president, then why would Ford feel the need to preemptively pardon him from criminal prosecution? It's because Richard Nixon absolutely would have been prosecuted had Gerald Ford not pardoned him.
And the people involved said as much. Like we don't even have to guess on there. Like, yeah, of course. Like, what the fuck, dude? You saw we did the Spiro Agnew. Like, we had to get Agnew the fuck out of the way, so then we had a clear shot at Nixon. And then of course, Nixon resigned, and then Ford was like, let me throw a flame directly onto my own personal career and pardon him, right? Let me jump in front of this bullet for no reason. So, yeah, that idea that he has immunity is very easily knocked down by that argument, which I appreciate. And I think I've not heard someone make that argument, so I think that's a good one. The other side of the argument against Trump's nonsense is, okay, then why are you asking for Joe Biden to be prosecuted? Why? If a president is immune to things that they did in office, by the way, I would assume that immunity would stretch to a vice president as well, because if it doesn't, that doesn't really make any sense, right? Like any level of immunity and access and everything else for the vice president and the president, pretty much exactly the same, right? Like it's just the duties as assigned, right? Like that's really the major difference here, right? So you would have to assume by their logic that those sort of that sort of cover also extends to a vice president. So what are you trying to prosecute Joe Biden for when he was vice president? Oh, well, he was being corrupt and all that. But if you believe that there is absolute immunity, what is the question? That's a question I would like to see someone ask them directly. Does the same immunity extend to a vice president? And if so, if it doesn't, in your eyes, why doesn't it?
Yeah.
But
here's the thing: we're trying to shine logic onto an inherently illogical claim. So that's silly.
I mean, welcome to politics with Republicans, right?
What I'm interested to see is what happens with the Supreme Court, because like you said, there's no way they're not going to hear the argument. They have to. It's too important. They can't just be like, whatever the lower court said, that's fine.
But God, would it be hilarious if they did that?
It would objectively be fucking funny as shit.
Dude, the social whatever his True Social, those truths that he put out they would have to print them out and frame them in a fucking museum. He would go ballistic. It would be beautiful. Anyway,
now I know people are worried because this Supreme Court is, many of these justices are very in the bag for shit Republicans want to do. I don't think that they're willing to torpedo accountability for the office of the president for time immemorial for this fucking guy.
No way.
But what I'm interested to see, so back, in normal times, back in the day, as recently as 30 years ago, this is the kind of thing that you would see a 9-0 decision come down, where every single fucking justice would be like, hey, this is fucking ridiculous. Yeah. But we don't live in normal times. And I can't wait to see the argument that Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito concoct to vote against, to vote to dissent and say that somehow a president should be immune from prosecution for things he did while he was in the White House.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll do you one better. While that'll be interesting, here's what's actually going to be more interesting. And you had brought this up a number of weeks ago. What will actually be the most crazy part of all of this is not only watching them make the argument, but when they do try to, because I think they will try to rule in favor of Trump. But they can't leave it wide open enough that then Joe Biden is like, well, baby, guess what I get to do? I get to do everything, right? They can't do that because look, they're crazy. They're not fucking stupid, right? That would be an unbelievably dumb thing to do. So they're going to try to narrow it, right? They're going to try, because they can't, I don't think that they'll just be like, sorry, Trump, you're in the wrong. It is what it is. Best of luck, homeboy. I just don't think they'll do that. It'd be great if they did, but I don't think so, right?
I think they will, because again, it's not like they're saying you're guilty. They're just they're leaving they're giving him the same due process that any other American citizen has.
I think they're going to try to narrow that shit, and I think it's going to. I think look. Am I saying that's the way to do it? Am I saying that makes sense? No, but I think they will try to narrow that shit and be like, well, if you're just slightly on this line, but not on that line, I think that's what's going to be interesting to see them try to thread the needle of somehow allowing this guy to do whatever the fuck he wants and say what he did was fine, next time you can't do that, but this time you get a little slap on the wrist.
Here's why they won't be able to do that is because you have to base your decision based on the merits of the arguments that are put before you. And the problem is that Trump
in this Supreme Court.
You can't just bring up shit that's not even presented. And again, the Trump lawyer argument is he had to have been impeached and removed to try him. Which there's nothing in the Constitution that says that. Again, remember, this is not the keep him off the ballot decision. Like that, I could see them finding a very narrow hole to fucking drive through to make that there. But this is pretty fucking cut and dry. Like Trump's argument is like you can't try me because I wasn't impeached and convicted. That's his literal argument that he's bringing to the Supreme Court to be like, hey, this is why this can't happen. Okay. I guarantee you that the ruling is going to be 7-2. Maybe 6-3 if Brett Kavanaugh is feeling cranky that day. I don't see John Roberts voting to let this shit slide. I don't see Amy Coney Barrett voting to let this shit slide, and I don't see Neil Gorsuch doing it either if he holds true to his textualist fucking persona, and especially because I'm sorry, like I was about to say because he ruled in a different case to support the argument, but that was for the ballot access.
Yeah. All right.
Case. So
all right. Let's make a bet. Let's make a bet. Okay. What's your final number on how it breaks down? And you're saying
7-2.
7-2. 7-2 in favor of the Fed. I say it goes 5-4. I say it goes 5-4 Fed. Towards the federal government, but like they're definitely going to try to slide, like whatever the like whoever's in the minority is going to propose what will legitimately be one of the most insane arguments for why this should have been allowed. I guarantee you, and it's going to be some razor thin, only him type bullshit. Yeah, I'm going 5-4, and it's weird, right? Because The reason I go 5-4 is the same reason that senators don't say shit until they get out of office on the Republican Party. They're scared of him, and they're scared of his constituents.
But why are they scared of him?
I know, not of him. Like what is he gonna do? Right? No, I mean his constituents. I think they're afraid of them. I think they have created a monster, and the monster is not Trump. The monster is Trump's following, like the most ardent, crazy of his following, and I think they're afraid of him. And I think they need to get it as close to the line and be like, we tried to stop it, but we couldn't. I'm telling you, dude, I would be fucking shocked if it goes 7-2, 9-0, 8-1, some shit like that. I'd be shocked by that. I think it's going to be a razor-thin margin, and it's deeply, deeply disturbing that it will get that close.
Yeah. I like I said, I think you're too cynical about this. I think that legally
you're not cynical enough.
No. I like I said, there are definitely ways that they can massage the law to interpret things how they want to. This is a situation where it's pretty fucking cut and dry.
Look,
like there is literally nothing in the Constitution to suggest that Trump's argument has any merit whatsoever. And to concoct a rationale for following it it's going to look like some fucking clown show shit. That's why I'm saying 7-2. Like, I know that fucking Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito will fucking be, be on the clown show. Like they'll do that shit. Course, I don't see the other three of them being like.
I find your faith in Amy Coney Barrett to be unbelievable. Like, okay, look, it's fine. All of the things that you're saying about why it shouldn't happen, the way I'm saying it, I 100% agree with you. And that is why I don't believe it's going to. I truly believe that they are going to try to thread the needle in a very fucking weird way, because I think they are so fucking terrified that if they don't try to back this guy to the goddamn hilt, if they don't do it, as much as they can push up to that line, if they don't do it, I think they are so desperately afraid of what is going to come. Right? Like, look, here's a prime example. Like, to push back on one thing two things two things I'm going to say. One is to push back on what you were saying. As far as they don't where is the cogent argument in the Constitution that would even support this idea of even having a 5-4 vote, right? Even getting that fucking close. There isn't one. However, there wasn't a cogent argument that gave corporations free speech either. There was never one, right? So look where we are as far as money in politics, right? Citizens United, there's no logical, there's no constitutional argument for it. Didn't fucking matter, right? They manipulated the shit and were like, oh, but corporations are people, my friend, and then that was fucking enough to drive that shit in ruin politics, right? And that wasn't a million years ago. It was only a number of years ago. The other side of that is, I think that if you look at what is happening with, and it's dying down now. Apparently, people went down to the border and they realized, hey, there's nothing happening, and they're just
we've got that discussion queued up later in the show, so don't worry about that.
Right, but that story I think has a lot more power than I think people realize. Not the secession story or aspect of it or the Civil War aspect of it, but the aspect that Republicans will ignore the Supreme Court when they deem it necessary. They don't give a shit, even though they control it. And I think that is another thing. If they don't look like they are fighting for this guy, I think they are desperately afraid, because I believe this about politics more than anything. People love power, and they do not want to diminish their own power. And I think that if they believe that the Republican Party will abandon the power that the Supreme Court has over this country, they will do whatever they need to do to preserve that. And right now, it's slipping. That Texas thing is a real indication of just how little handle they truly have over the Republican Party when the Republican Party decides, yeah, we don't give a fuck about this. They control the Supreme Court.
But here's the thing: is that I know Texas fucking like to talk a lot of shit about we're getting rid of this ruling. Guess what? They've abided by the ruling so far. They haven't done anything to go outside of it because again, they just like to talk and shit like that. And the reason that I think you're wrong here is because I think that most Republicans, and I'm not talking about your Matt Gaetzes and the most extreme
not lunatics,
people, but 75% of the Republican Party, deep in their mind, they would never admit it, but they would love to have an out from this guy. They would love to have an out from this guy that they don't need to actively participate in, and the Supreme Court allowing this shit to happen and then him eventually getting convicted would provide that
I agree with. That I agree with, and I've long said that, right? But yeah, I mean, look, even Ann Coulter, I did that TikTok video about it. Ann Coulter was like, what's a way to get away from Donald Trump and make America great again? He could die. She said it. And I was like, she's not wrong about that.
More on that specific topic later in the show.
I loved it. I was like, tweet heard round the world. Amazing. All right. Look, we've talked about this a number of times. Here is yet another example of this. Politics is theater. A lot of it is theater. Okay. In the last 2 weeks, we heard Joe Biden called Donald Trump a sick fuck or whatever, and it was like, oh shit, burn, oh my god. Joe Biden again is said to have said, quote, that Benjamin Netanyahu is a bad fucking guy, right, in private conversations, according to a column in Politico News. Here's the thing. This is an op. Okay, this is an op. It's not that hard to understand this one. Look, just oh, Joe Biden's old and doesn't know anything. This is like a move, okay? It's a clever political move, but here's a little inside baseball. Why do you think people keep saying shit that he said in a private conversation to public people? Because they want it to get out. Joe Biden has lost I wouldn't say a lot, but he has lost a good amount of young people. He has lost a good amount of Middle Eastern folks, especially who don't like his cozying up to Israel with what's going on in the Gaza Strip. That is real. That is obvious. Go on fucking TikTok or anything else. There's a bunch of young people, a bunch of young voters really pissed off about that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of, people of color who are pissed off about that, especially people who are of Middle Eastern descent, right? understandably, zero issue with that, right? This is a signal to those people when this comes out that, like, look, I don't like really fuck with this guy, right? This guy's not like, he's not my homeboy. I still think this guy's a piece of shit just like you guys do. Now, look, he may actually believe that, right? He actually may believe that Netanyahu is a bad dude. He is. And that this is a way to let his audience know that without coming out and say it. Because he's got to be a little bit aligned with him publicly about certain shit, right? Like, that's just a part of the game, right? Because the last thing you want is to put a little bit of daylight between you and Israel, because Republicans will exploit it. Like, that's 100% it.
Yep.
And so far right now, politically, that's what he's been keeping himself tight to him, to not allow Republicans to kind of wedge their way in. From a politics perspective, it's smart. From a, like, hey, human beings are dying part, not fucking cool, right? Who cares about the politics of it? People are dying.
Yeah, and I think the criticism you can have for him that is still incredibly valid is, like, you're starting to see cracks of the slight pivot, but it's just happening too slowly. Like, he also came out today and said that if he had a bill in front of him that only had Israeli support and not like Ukraine or anything like that he would veto it. Like, that's another indication of him, like, coming out and, you know, trying to establish that, like, hey, like, we need to see more than just, you know, like, in the bag for Israel. Like, we need to care about the humanitarian side of things and whatnot as well. It's just not happening fast enough for, I think, any of our likings. And, you know, overall, the response from the administration has continued to be poor. I mean, this conflict's been going on now for 4 months at this point, with no real signs of slowing down, except for possibly a ceasefire to exchange hostages, if that even comes to fruition. Right. And it's only escalating because now we're getting involved in skirmishes in other parts of the region that are you know, tangentially connected to what's going on with this. So, but I think us getting involved in the skirmishes is forcing the administration to really take another look at it, because, again, like, what you don't want to do is get into a situation where you have to have American troops on the ground, because that's the line that you really don't want to cross in any way, shape, or form.
No, you absolutely don't. And look, here's another part to this, right? Let's see. That's weird. Like, just the other day on Thursday, Joe Biden issued an executive order imposing sanctions on 4 settlers. These are, like, extremist Israeli settlers, as they're called. And by the way, I'm not saying that. Like, Haaretz is saying that, which is kind of like, I would argue they're not really in the bag for the Palestinians. Okay. But they're 4 extremist settlers who have been accused of assaults on Palestinians and Israeli peace activists in the West Bank, right? Like, so he is legitimately doing something of, like, calling out these, like, 4 people, right? Like, they're part of Israel's far right, like, politics. And so these guys do major financing and stuff like that. And so he is sanctioning the 4 of these people very specifically. So, look, it's not, like, to your point, it's not that they're not doing anything. It's moving too fucking slow. And this, again, going back to the original part of the story, this is an operation, right? I'm going to say this shit, or we're going to report this shit, that you don't really fuck with him, you don't fuck with Netanyahu like that. That'll kind of filter down until people are making memes about it and all this other shit. And that's how this shit works. Like, none of this shit is not played for theater largely. Like, anything where it's like private conversations about politicians are making it into public, all of that shit is, like, 99% of it is done on purpose. Right? Sometimes there are private conversations that make it out, and people are like, dude, don't fucking say this shit. That was from private shit. Yeah. But things like this are obvious. And when you see it happen, and then you see it backed by other stories of them doing stuff, they're signaling to you, look, hold on a second. I know y'all are pissed. We're trying to make moves. And to your point, it's not coming fast enough, and it needs to come faster, right? But that's what they're doing. This is an operation. Look, do more, right? Like I don't know what to tell you. Just do more. It's well out of hand, but at least he's trying something.
Well, but the fortunate thing, well, it's weird talking about this in, like, political gamesmanship terms, considering the situation. Right. Exactly. just to talk about it from a very cynical standpoint, Biden has time, and hardening his rhetoric helps as you get closer to October, November, basically. So
again, that's fucked up, but because people die.
It is,
in that time.
but especially because you know how Trump's going to go with this situation. Like, he's going to be fucking full to the hilt. Let's go, Israel. BB's my friend. And if I was president, this shit would have never happened. I'd like someone to push on that, by the way, whenever he says that dumb shit. Like when he, I knew he normally says it in his stump speech, but next time he sits down with somebody, I really would like them to be like, hey, like, you said this, you said that if you were president, like, this conflict would never happen. How would you go? How would that be the case exactly? Like, what would you have done to prevent this from happening specifically?
And then he would just knock over a glass of water and run out of the room. He doesn't have an answer. But yeah, it's ridiculous, but like, that's the kind of stuff you got to pay attention to. Like, this is the part of politics that's like really annoying, especially when it comes to very serious things like this. Because you don't, like you said, it's weird talking about this stuff in like a gamesmanship kind of situation. But I hate to say it, like, gamesmanship is kind of a part of it, right? Like, you do, like, especially international politics, you do have to, like, kind of game shit out a little bit, because you don't want to give up too much of your hand. You got to hold a little bit back. Then you give up a little bit. You pull the other guy towards you. Like, it's a bit of that.
Well,
to try to save lives, Biden, but it feels slow.
And Biden Biden specifically has looked really bad in this situation, specifically because there's been nothing to contrast him against. And I was listening to Pod Save the World, and they said it's inexplicable how, when Donald Trump has been asked about the conflict, he basically has been giving non-answers and isn't being held to account for that.
That sounds
like in a normal world, like if you were running to be president and you didn't have an opinion on one of the two major fucking foreign conflicts that are going on in the world right now, it's something like the idea that you wouldn't get called out on that is outrageous. But because he is him, you know, he doesn't have to be like, his feet are never held to the fire by anybody, because, you know, for whatever reason,
he's not the adult in the room. They always hold Democrats to answering very serious questions, and then when it comes to Republicans, it's like, how would you make sure kids got lunches? And they're like, well, you know, it's like these like super simple questions, right? But at the end of the day, you know, there's one question that like sums that all up. What is Aleppo? Right? You remember that? Like, remember that? Like, dude didn't know what it was. Right? What was that guy's name? Oh fuck.
Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson. He didn't know what Aleppo was. Right? He had no fucking clue. And like, this guy's running for president. Like, what do you think about the conflict in Aleppo? What is Aleppo? Like, why are you running? Why are you running? And that, at least that at a minimum, showed just how little they're required to know versus a Democrat. Democrats have to be, they not only have to know they not only have to know like the major shit of the day, right? Which, by the way, every person running for president should know that. But Democrats are held to that standard. Then they're also held to, you need to have a definitive policy, like a definitive, what would you have done different than the other person? Like, you have to have all of that shit down the line. Republicans are like, they ask Republicans, like, what newspapers do you read? And then that's somehow a big controversy, right? Like, that's the difference. And it's just crazy.
I will, to be fair to Gary Johnson, he said that during the Libertarian primary debate, and as a Libertarian, he would not be expected to have knowledge of anything more than a third grader. So, to be fair to Gary Johnson, I'm going to give him a pass on that. I'm going to give him a pass on that, considering what he was running for.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not going to do that. Like, that's crazy. No, I don't think it was. No, I think that was on, if I'm correct, like, that was on CNN, and like, dude was just asked, and he didn't know that shit. Like,
yeah, but he was still running for the Libertarian. He never ran as a Republican. I don't think Gary Johnson did.
No,
I think he was always running.
No, dude, this was the 2016 election. Like,
yeah, but he was the Libertarian candidate.
I thought that was a time where he wasn't running as a Libertarian.
I'm pretty sure that he always was running for libertarian because there was no way that he was ever going to.
Oh, okay,
come
you're right.
close.
You're right. He was just
Yeah.
nah, yo. Like, but it's still unacceptable. Like, he wasn't, but that wasn't him running in like the libertarian primary. He was the libertarian candidate.
Oh, at that point.
And then he was the candidate. So you're supposed, of all the idiots, you're the biggest idiot, however that works. You're supposed to know. Welcome to the show. You're on the major part of this. Like, you got past the guys who were like, do we need seatbelts? You got past them. You got to know. Like, by the way, that's not a joke. Like, they legitimately,
I know.
they
It's
legitimately
100%
make
true.
the argument. Libertarianism is fucking crazy.
Speaking of libertarians, speaking of our favorite fucking child molesting group of people, did you hear that apparently because he's having trouble getting ballot access everywhere else, RFK is considering running as the libertarian candidate in the election?
Should. Oh, he should. He should absolutely do it. Look. What's it going to do? What difference is it going to make? I just saw an article.
If anything, I think that would make it harder for him to win. Like if he actually is, like, it's one thing if you're running as an independent, but it's like, oh, you're libertarian? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, everyone's like, what is the age of consent in Missouri? And he's like, 12. Like, got it.
Well, that's how you have to get the nomination. Like, you have to know the age of consent laws for every state just off the top of your head.
Right.
It's the only way you can get in the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, Democrats and Republicans, it's like name all of the state capitals. Libertarians, it's like name the age of consent for the following states. Like, damn it, this stuff is too hard. They're very weird. They're very weird in that way. So, look, it's like knowing that the questions are so unbelievably simple-minded for them. Yeah, it's not surprising that Trump isn't being held to any sort of real standard. All right, let's get into this story. Which has one of the greatest quotes I've ever seen. It's amazing. So Trump's New York fraud trial judge, Judge Engoron, has gotten a little pissed because he got blindsided recently, right? Like, he's supposed to be like issuing his final verdict on this case, which is basically this is how much money you owe. Like, that's all this case is, right? At this point. He's working on that. I'm sure it's going to be thorough and very interesting to hear about and read. But he got blindsided because there's a New York Times article that came out that was like, so Alan Weisselberg, the ex-Trump Organization CFO, is planning on doing a plea deal, a perjury plea deal, because he's saying, hey, man, I lied during this trial. And so he's like, Engoron writes a letter to the prosecution and the defense, and he's like, yo, what the fuck, guys? Like, is this true? Because, I'm in the midst of trying to finish this shit up, and, the trial in and of itself is over, but I'm in the middle of working on my the verdict here, and I'm being blindsided by this that I'm reading in a fucking news article, right? Like, is this true? And if it's true, like, he quotes, he drops some Latin, which was falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus, which means false in one, false in everything. Basically, the argument is, if he lied about something in this case, like one thing in this case, should we trust anything that he said? And we need to go back and we need to thoroughly go through this, right? Which I think is totally valid. And look, he then goes on to say, I want to get this quote correctly, because frankly, how this has not been said by a comic book villain at some point, I don't know. After all his notes, he writes in the letter, quote, that he is, quote, the presiding magistrate, the trier of fact, the judge of credibility. Dude, that's a dope line, man. That needs to be something Thanos says in a Marvel movie.
It's like a Doctor Doom line.
Yeah, I am the judge of credibility. It really is. Look, he's absolutely right. like if Weisselberg is like, yeah, I lied, is that cool? No.
That is kind of wild that like the prosecution wouldn't be coming to him, be like, hey, by the way, like we're trying Alan Weisselberg for perjury because something he did for this trial, like he lied to you, so we're charging him. Just FYI,
right? Of all people, and like you're right. Like, why isn't the prosecution like immediately on this? Like,
right.
there's a plea deal possible. Like, a judge, like we're all over it. Like, here's the deal. I don't know if they're like waiting till like they get like it finalized, and maybe the New York Times got sort of a like a heads up that this might be happening, and they just fucking ran with the story just because they want to scoop everybody. I don't know, but it is curious that they wouldn't have immediately gone to the judge, or even like, hey, this is a possibility. You may want to slow up for a second. Let us see what happens in the next like 20 days or 10 days or whatever as we're trying to work this out. All of that being said, Weisselberg doing a plea deal is not a good thing for Trump. And if it's really, really bad, and he was the former CFO, I think it probably is. We may be on the cusp of seeing what we had talked about is a small but very significant possibility, which is they could just dissolve the Trump organization if the fraud is that bad. And Weisselberg is like, oh yeah, by the way, this, and this. All of that I oversaw, and it was fucking terrible, and these assholes knew about it. They didn't really give a fuck. If I'm Alan Weisselberg, I don't know, man. I mean,
the problem with him is he keeps wanting to fall on his fucking sword. Weisselberg does for some reason. Like I have no idea why he's this loyal to Trump. It doesn't make any sense to me. But okay, I mean, especially because again, like we got to see yet another example of Trump fucking using, abusing, and then kicking you to the curb. As you know, he lost the E. Jean Carroll trial. He goes to appeal the verdict. Or, appeal the damages that were handed out. Guess who's not in his cadre of lawyers anymore? Yep. Shockingly enough. Alina Hava, you are dismissed, and now the fucking Q idiots are online saying that somehow she's a Democratic plant, and she's so fucking stupid, and the Democrats planted her there to make Trump look bad.
He chose her. He chose her. Like, now we all know why he chose her. She's got a specific Melania fucking Ivanka look about her, but he chose her. Like, they didn't, somebody didn't go, here's a lawyer you should do. Like, he chose her.
Congratulations, girl. You like you fucking showed your whole ass, and at the end of the day, all you're gonna be saying is, well, I didn't think the leopards would eat my face.
I don't understand it. Look, by the way, more on this later, because another person who couldn't help but to genuflect herself damn near to death at the altar of Trump is about to get embarrassed again. Dude, do you guys see any, like, a thing I'm very good at, like personally, I'm very good at, and I'm very proud of it as an adult man, is I'm pretty goddamn good at recognizing patterns, right? Like personality patterns. I feel like these people are terrible at recognizing personality patterns. Like, no, I mean, he's treated every single person who has like sucked up to him and just like, they just can't debase themselves enough for him. He's treated them all like garbage in the end. But it might not happen to me. And it's like,
I'm about to say, I think they're all just Tobias Fucaking themselves, basically. Like it doesn't work for anybody else, but it might work for us.
These people are under such delusions that it'll work for them. And it might work for us. Like, it's unreal how dumb they are about this. They never see the pattern coming. Why are you jumping on your sword for this guy? For once, somebody needs to be like, not me. Fuck that. Like, dude, just bail. Like, this guy doesn't have your best interest in mind. He doesn't. He doesn't have a.
Well, we have seen that. We have seen that, by the way. Like, Michael Cohen famously is probably the most prime example of a dude who fucking he's like getting off the train, like, peace, I'm going to jail, doing my time, and now I get to do a podcast all the time. Like, it's like and he didn't
even go the whole time, right? Like, he got out on good behavior and he's like, yeah, I'm chilling, right? But
no, he got out because of COVID. That's why he got out. So,
well, and he's rich. right? Like, let's get real.
That too. Yeah.
There are plenty of people still sitting in jail who did way worse for this, way less bad for this country, and they're like, "Oh, I also have COVID." They're like, "Yeah, stay your ass right in." So, yeah, it is curious that like she got screwed over. I don't understand. Maybe Weisselberg is maybe he's got lawyers that are like, dude, don't do this. Like, don't fall on the sword for this guy. This guy's on his way out. This is a prime time to just bail. Like, he's 77 years old. He is facing massive prosecution. He's likely not going to win the presidency. Now is the time to jump ship. Look, the time to jump ship is not going to be if he loses the election and then you're like, oh, now I'm jumping ship. No. They're like, everybody's going to know what that is. Like, he doesn't have any more power. Now is the time that when he has the potential to have power and you go, now fuck that guy. Yeah, that's when people go, cool. Because I can tell you, if, and I believe when, he loses to Joe Biden, if there isn't a massive civil war and craziness, but if life just goes on normal, let us hope, you will see so many people openly defect from him. Because one, he will be a loser twice, right? That matters a lot.
He'll be a loser for the fourth time. What are you talking about twice?
All right, fair enough, right? But he will be branded as a loser. He will then also have no ability to gain power over them. And that's when people are going to go, it's like Republicans leaving the Senate and they're, let me tell you something. And then they'll just start dumping. And no one has respect for that. Respect comes from when you're willing to challenge the king when they have power, not when they don't. That's weird.
See, and you say that, and this is where I think you're not being cynical enough.
Okay.
Because we saw this in microcosm in the wake of January 6th. Like, remember that week or so after January 6th, like all these Republicans that backed him to the hilt, where, Lindsey Graham famously on the floor, like I'm done, like I rode the train as long as I can, I'm getting off. Fucking Ken McCarthy talking shit on him on the House floor, like the normie Republicans, like it seemed like they were having their come to Jesus moment, and then like 3 weeks later they were right back in the fucking bag. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think the difference is that they realize that he could still gain power again. Mm-hmm. He can't gain any more power. Like, politically, what power is he going to have if he loses his
he could run for president in 2028.
He'll be 112 years old.
And get and
will ask him to. There are MAGA idiots who will be like, hell yeah. Him at 105 years old makes sense.
And then we could be like Gavin Newsom, like, look, I'm not going to embarrass you intellectually. I'm going to suplex you on this stage. Yeah. That's what's about to happen.
Dude, the idea of him running at 80, starting a run at 81 is crazy. Like, that's crazy. Like, and he's crazier than a shithouse rat at this point. What is he going to look like in 4 years? Are you kidding me? He's just like out of his mind. But they'd be like, yeah, no, he seems sober. They're like, this fucking sober mind. Like, this guy's ready to go. So,
because the reason why I could see it happening. Do you think the criminal charges are going to stop? You think he's not breaking the law right now as we fucking speak in some way, shape, or form that we just haven't learned about yet?
Yeah. And look. Once those lawyers if he loses a case, and it's like hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's say they don't even dissolve his corporation, but it's like $500, $600 million. No, when there's blood in the water, the sharks will come. Like, they're going to be like, oh, shit, this guy's vulnerable? Let's fucking go. And they will just go after him and go after him and go after him. Like, because everybody's going to want a taste. All the people you've wronged, everything, they are going to want a piece of you. And when they know that you're vulnerable, they're going to come for you. And look, I'm here for it. I'm here to watch that guy get torn apart in the courtroom. That would be awesome.
Well, and look, like, I actually, like, I hope he does lose. I kind of want to see him make a stab at running again, because I do believe at that point, like, it's going to be really sad and pathetic. And I think enough people will fall off of support for him that it'll just be really pathetic for him. And also, like, all of his most ardent supporters, like, still like clinging on to this fucking idea with their fucking Rambo flags, outside of his rallies and shit like that.
He's still got a six pack. He's never had a six pack.
Yeah, like at that point it'll go from like scary to just like sad, and I would delight in that.
I mean, in fairness, I already think it's sad, but I'm also here for weaponized sadness. Like I'm okay.
Yeah,
that's fine by me. Next up, dog catches car. This is super good, Brad.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, so we talked last week about the GOP negotiating in the Senate with Democrats over a border security bill that's being linked up with Ukraine funding. And this has been something that the GOP has been railing about for a very long time. You know, obviously, like their whole thing since Obama, for fuck's sake, has been the border's out of control and we're being invaded and this, that, or the other thing. And so Senate Republicans are working with Senate Democrats to put a bill together that, again, like from a progressive perspective, is not a great bill. Like I don't think there's too much in this bill that we're big fans of. But you got to do something, right? Like the way the border is situated right now. Like right now, the asylum process is fucking borked. We have a lot of folks crossing illegally into the country every day. So you can't doing nothing is not an option. Doing something is the only thing you can do. And again, like when you're reliant on Republicans to pass whatever deal you have to, you're going to have some shit in there that's you're not the biggest fan of, right? So the problem is that Trump and the Republicans, did the quiet part out loud and were openly railing against the bill to the point where now the Senate has presented the bill and they're planning on voting on it. But it's probably going to die in the Senate because they don't want it to get out of the Senate, because if it gets out of the Senate and then it gets voted down or not even brought to the floor in the House, it's going to make Republicans look fucking awful. And so it's to their benefit to have this die in the Senate and not go anywhere, to the point where the Republican who negotiated the bill with Democrats, the guy who took the lead on the negotiation, the guy who's been out in front of it on all the shows, talking about how great the bill is and how it gives them stuff that, we've needed for a long time. And, we can't do nothing. Like we've been talking about this. It would be silly just to not do anything because it's politically advantageous for Donald Trump, is considering voting against the bill that he co-authored, because that is where he's at right now, because he's getting shit on from the right because Donald Trump doesn't want them to vote for this because he wants to run on it.
Yep, that's it. Look, Mike Johnson admitted pretty much this exact same thing last week. Like, I talked to the former president and he doesn't like it, but I independently also came to these exact conclusions myself, and so did everyone else in my party who also didn't come to those conclusions a week before. This is not surprising. They need Trump to run on something. Trump needs to run on something. He has something to push against. Obviously, they tried desperately to run on Joe Biden is ruining the economy, and then it was like, shit, the economy's doing well. I saw Trump said earlier or late last week that the stock market is doing well now and in anticipation for him returning to the presidency.
It's the economy is running so well right now. Like Fox is at the point where they can't even spin it anymore. I saw a clip of them when the jobs report came out. Like they were literally on like Fox Business, like fucking like, yeah, jobs report should be coming out soon. Like we're expecting a growth of like 150,000 jobs. And then the report came down and it was something. It was like 330,000, but like their audible reaction to hearing that news in real time, they were like, "That's incredible." they're just like, we can't even fucking spin this. Like, holy shit! Like, what the fuck are we supposed to say? Yeah. Like this is fucking working. Here's a quote from Brian Schatz, the senator, one of the senators from Hawaii, on the border bill. Just gobsmacked. I've never seen anything like it. They literally demanded specific policy, got it, and then killed it. Is what he's saying.
Okay, here's the thing I don't like about that statement. You've never seen anything like this? This is exactly what they've done a number of times. They've done this.
Right.
Look, dude, never forget. I wish I could remember the exact bill. But never forget that the Republican Party put forth a bill. The Democrats were like, you shouldn't pass that bill. That's not going to be a good idea. Republicans passed the bill, and then they realized that they fucked up, and then they blamed Obama and the Democrats. They were like, why didn't you stop us from passing that bill? What? They did that. Why didn't you stop us from being stupid? Like that is the Republican mantra all the time. They don't actually have any policies. They have anti-policies. That's all they have. What are you guys doing? Cool. We're against that. All right. Like, that's it. Actually, Democrats should be smarter and just start putting forth crazy right-wing policies, and then maybe Republicans will be like, we need more health care. Make people pay less. Like, because they just
well, again, they seem to be the party that's not willing to take yes for an answer. Like that's literally what's fucking going on here. Where and it's because like when they throw the rhetoric around, they don't expect to actually get anywhere, and that's the kind of secret sauce of the Republican Party. Like you said, they don't legislate, so like they say a bunch of dumb shit and just fucking run on it. And finally, like, they're in a situation where the Democrats are like, all right, we don't really like this stuff, but we're willing to give you some of the stuff that you want to get some of the things that we want. And also, hey, by the way, we need to fund Ukraine. So, like, we'll throw that into this package as well. Because you guys have been saying for literally the last year that we can't have Ukraine funding without a border bill. So, cool, here's your border bill. And it comes with Ukraine funding, and here's some things that you wanted, and we'll give those to you, and we'll help bolster the asylum process a little bit more than it is right now. You guys have been saying, oh, you want the president to be able to close the border when crossings get too high. Okay, well we'll put that language in the bill too, right? And so here you go. Like, this is exactly what you guys said you wanted. Let's work together once it gets passed. Like, wait a second. Like, I didn't think you were serious about giving us the things that we wanted.
We're not here to get shit done.
and the funny part is, like, whether this gets killed in the Senate or not, and objectively, I think it's better for Republicans if it does get killed in the Senate. But whether it does or not, the bell's been rung. Like, you can't unring that bell. And now they've created a situation where, like, the border's going to continue to be shit, and Trump's going to fucking get on a debate stage with Joe Biden and be like, yeah, like, the border's a fucking sieve. Like, people are coming over here like crazy. And Biden can turn to him and be like, yeah, bro, like, we tried to fucking fix that shit in February. You told your Republicans not to fucking vote for it. So what the fuck?
Yeah. And you know what the best part of that is? One, it's a great weapon for Biden to use, right? But the other aspect of that is specificity, right? Because what Trump will say is, well, it wasn't a good bill. And I would immediately challenge him. I'd be like, what's a thing in that bill that you disagree with?
Right. Name three things in the bill.
Yeah, like, what's the name of the bill? He'd be like, fuck, I don't know. But I'd be like, be specific. You give a lot of generalities, and it doesn't feel like you know what you're talking about. I'd be like, be specific. What were three things you didn't agree with in that bill? Shit, give me one. Give me one. He wouldn't be able to tell you. Like, he wouldn't be able to tell you anything. That's how you hold him. Like, that's a good weapon to have in your back pocket. It's an easy one, right? Like, you killed the bill, dum-dum. Like, and then, by the way, I would have names of Republican senators who, like, the most right-wing senators that you can find, and I'd have them motherfuckers in my back pocket, and I'd be like, fucking porn assassin guy, that guy. Like, I would start naming all of the Republican senators who openly backed that bill and said that it was.
You don't even have to go that far. James Lankford is one of the most right-wing fucking dudes in Congress, and he wrote the fucking bill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the dude that fucking wrote the bill is like is the one that, that you're saying, like, oh, he's a left wing, he's a liberal squish. Okay, Donald Trump, whatever you say, buddy.
Right, but like, that's what I would do. I would have those names in my back pocket because look, not everybody's going to know Lankford, but like, people are going to know some of these other names. Like, make sure you have those names and just be like, look, they were out here advocating for this bill. You got involved and told them to kill the bill, and they did. Because you wanted to run on this and you didn't actually care about the border and what's going on. This is politics. This is not actual policy. That's how you hit him. Because look, he's going to run on it because it's the only thing he's got. What are you going to run? You can't run on the economy. You can't run on jack shit. You can't really run on abortion because you don't want to remind young people that shit. And young people and women, that's still a problem. So what do you run on? The country is in such bad shape. Is it? Is it? Inflation is bad. Look, it's not great.
It's not.
It's not great, but it's not something you can really run on anymore. It's not. Look, people are going to be like, oh, the prices of things are out of hand and stuff like that. I would agree with you. You know what came out this week? That one of the things Biden's doing? He's going to the grocery store companies and being like, hey, you need to knock it off. The prices are getting too high. Because they're inflating them falsely, under false pretenses. That's not an inflation issue. That's a corporation issue, right? Mm-hmm. Again, this is why I don't like libertarianism. Well, we just let corporations just do whatever they want. And surely we just go to a different grocery store.
The famously careful and cautious corporations who never put a foot wrong. Just give them free reign to do whatever.
And they never collude with each other to fuck the market. That never happens. It never happens. You just go to a different grocery store. Idiots. That's the dumbest fucking political ideology by far. It's the dumbest. Besides like laissez-faire, like it's basically laissez-faire. Like it just is. Laissez-faire will lay down for anyone. Libertarianism specifically wants to lay down for corporations. There's no difference, right? So like this idea of how do you hit this guy is you've already backed him into a corner. He doesn't have anything else to run on. So he's going to only run on the border, and this is where you hammer him. Because when he comes with that, he's going to come strong because everybody's going to be like, that's his thing, the fucking wall, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Bring that shit. And then that is you fucking politically judo that shit. You use his biggest strength that he sees as his strength as his biggest weakness. Not only do you not care about the wall or the border, not only do you not care about it, you instructed your fucking minions to fuck it up because you don't actually care about it. You care more about your politics than you care about fixing the problem. And that is the biggest issue with having your stupid ass back in office for the next 4 years. Hit him. And then what else? And then you can sit back because the rest of this shit is just you holding your hand on his head as he's swinging wildly because he doesn't have anything else to argue with. There's nothing else. So, yeah, do that. More of that, please. Next up, speaking of that, Trump wants to debate Biden immediately.
Of course he does.
I bet you do. Which is hilarious. So
I liked the clapback from Joe Biden even better, quite honestly.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Biden, when told about this, in response, he says, well, if I were him, I'd want to debate me too. He's got nothing else to do right now.
Yeah, like, you're not doing anything. You're tweeting, right? Like, you got nothing. You got nothing. And he also wants to do this to hurt Nikki Haley because then it immediately looks him, even though he technically is the de facto winner of this whole thing, right? Like, you start debating with Joe Biden, that knocks Nikki Haley the fuck out. Like, we're not even talking about her. Look, Joe Biden ain't dumb. Like, oh, let's debate now. No, I'm going to let you, look, here, instead of debating, here's a box full of rope. And I'm just going to keep sending it to your house and let you fucking hang yourself politically with it. Why would I debate you now? I'm going to wait till we get closer till you got all these disastrous things you've said and done, and then I can debate you and then kick the shit out of you in November. No, not debating you. Get out of here.
See, I don't think Biden went far enough because if it were me, I'd have been like, well, Trump's not the Republican nominee yet, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to debate him because he hasn't even won the support of his party yet, and just be that fucking petty guy.
Like, you know what?
Be that fucking petty dude.
Be like, you know what? I actually, here, you want to be even pettier? I would come out and be like, I'd rather debate Nikki Haley. She seems more reasonable to me. Like your ideas, you don't have any new ideas. At least Nikki Haley's got something to talk about. Like, look, one, it's the person he's running against. Two, it's a woman. Like, he gonna hate that shit. Like, knock it off. Yeah. But you just push him away like a petulant child, right? Like, he wants to try to legitimize himself to be put on your level, right? That's why his people still call him President Trump instead of Donald Trump, in case you've never noticed that, right? It's a desperate plea.
I notice it all the fucking time. It drives me insane.
The president said, he's not the fucking president. Say former president at the max, right? Donald Trump. You ain't in office. You a regular ass person. Knock it off. Okay, that's the end of the free portion for this week's episode of Look Forward. Make sure you go to lookforwardshow.com/premium. Sign up for premium content. It's only $5 a month or $50 for the full year.